Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to Parsha Perspectives for today. Great to be together again, and I want to thank you. To those who come in person, Baruch Hashem, a packed sanctuary, it means the world to me to learn together, the energy, the eye-to-eye contact. For those watching online, if you're not living locally, that's fantastic. It's incredible to be able to learn together virtually, but you can't compare looking at a screen or listening while you drive to being in person. So thank you to those who make the effort to be here. I know it's, for me, not the slushies, the coffee, the free pastries. So I really appreciate it. Okay, Parsha Perspectives is generously sponsored by Becky and Avi Katz and family in memory of David Grossman, Leila Nishmas, David Ben Menachem Manish. This morning's shir is sponsored by Dr. Golda Sadowski in honor of Rabbi Yehuda Leib and Doris Kurtzer, her dear uncle and aunt, our beloved dear members. Not been able to make it down yet this year. We wish them well and good health. And please God, hopefully we'll be able to see them sometime soon. Parshas Mikeitz, page 222 in the Art Scroll Stone Chumash. Parshas Mikeitz, the drama is building. It's growing. The brothers are going down to Egypt and they're encountering this Yosef and they're desperate and they need his help. And the drama is just building, as I say each and every week in Bereshis. We know the way it ends, and yet we're still at the edge of our seat. Because every year, every turn, every time we learn the Parsha again, we discover something new about it, which makes the drama come alive all over again. Page 222, Perek Memal, Pasuk Aleph, beginning of Parshas Mikeitz. Vahi Mikeitz Nasayim Yamim, Ufaroch Cholei Minei Omed Al Yaor. It's the end of 2 years, and Paro is dreaming. And here he is standing on the edge, standing over the river. There's so many questions in this opening Pasuk. We're not going to dive into them right now. I got in trouble last week. I asked you 4 questions I didn't give answers to, and I was harassed all week by people who were angry and felt entitled to the answers. And how dare I deposit those questions and make people think. So I'm not going to, God forbid, do that again. But Vayehi is a language of negativity. Why would we introduce our Parsha? Vayehi is Lashon of a language of something sad. Where's the sadness in Yosef finally coming out of prison? Yosef is going to emerge and attain his freedom. Yosef is going to elevate to the viceroy of Egypt. He's going to sustain his family. He's going to sustain all of Egypt. Why Vayehi? Where is the sadness in that? And it's at the end of 2 years. Why did it take 2 years? It's the end of 2 years since what? 2 years since when? It's the end of 2 years. What does that mean, 2 years? And Rashi tells us it's the end of the 2 years after the dreams, the prisoners. Yosef says, Madu Pnechem Re'imayom. We studied last week, where Yosef says, why do you look so sad? Why are you so down and out? He interprets their dreams and he is remembered, but it takes 2 more years because Yosef showed excessive initiative. He should have had faith in Hashem that Hashem had a plan. Hashem would take him out in the right time. He showed excessive initiative, and so he had to wait twice as long, 2 years. And Paro Cholem. Paro doesn't say Chalam, he dreamed, he dreamt. Cholem means present tense. He's dreaming. He's dreaming. Why does it say he's dreaming? Because he's dreaming over and over and over again. And in fact, Chazal rabbis tell us for these 2 years, he had this recurring dream. This wasn't one time. It was a recurring dream that was over and over and over again. Why did he need to dream it for 2 years straight? Why couldn't he dream it just once? Why couldn't he just dream it right when it's time for Yosef to come out? Why was he having this recurring dream in the present tense, choleim, over and over? So those are the questions I'm not asking because I don't want to get in trouble for not giving you answers. And from this river that Paro is standing over emerged 7 cows of beautiful appearance. They are robust, healthy, and they're grazing in the marsh. And then there are 7 other cows that elevate, that come out of the Yor. They're ugly, and they're gaunt, and they're malnourished. And they stand next to the Parasas. And now the scrawny, gaunt, unhealthy cows imbibe, they ingest the healthy ones. And he wakes up. And then what does he do? He falls right back to sleep and he has another dream. And our rabbis note, unlike Yaakov, that he wakes up from this startling dream of the stairway to heaven, the ladder bridging heaven and earth. And he says, wow, there's God in this place and I didn't know. And Yaakov is transformed as the result. Yaakov is changed. Yaakov is impacted. What does Paro do? Turns over, right back to sleep. Vayishan, vayachalom shainis. He turns over, he goes right back to sleep. Nice for him that he could go back to sleep when he wakes up in the middle of the night. But he wakes up and he turns over, right back to sleep. And now he's got the same dream and taking the case of 7 stalks. The thin ones consume the large ones, the healthy ones, and so on. Which brings us to where we're going to begin. Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Tezayin. It's on the next page. Because Paro he's startled by these dreams. They make no sense. They don't add up. And they are recurring over and over and over again. And they can't shake them. And they can't understand them. They're not enough to wake him in the middle of the night for the rest of the night. He turns over and he falls right back to sleep, unlike Yaakov. But they startle him. So he calls all of his interpreters, Chartumei Mitzrayim and Chachameha, the wise one, the dream interpreters, the psychic network. He taps it all in Mitzrayim. And nobody, Ein Posero Sam Leparo. They're all no good. They're all unable to provide an answer, a solution. So what does he do? This Sarah Mashkim tells Paro, this is dangerous for me to even mention to you that I once failed you. But do you remember? There was once a fly in your drink. My bad. So sorry. Paro katzaf alavadav. You remember you got really angry at me? And you put me in prison together with the baker. While we were in prison, we had these dreams. And there was Ish Kipison Chalamo Chalamna Bashamitanu Nari Ivri Eved. And there was with us a young man, Ivri. He was Me'ivri, he was another. He spoke a funny language, he dressed funny, wore a funny thing on his head. He was an outsider. But when Asapra Lo, we told him our story, he successfully interpreted, he was accurate, he was dead on. He predicted exactly what was going to happen out of our dream. And that's exactly what happened. So what does Paro do? Text doesn't even tell us that he responded. Text doesn't even tell us he said anything. Vayishlach Paro vayikras Yosef. Paro sends and he calls him. Vayitzum and abor. He takes him out of the pit. Vayigalach. He shaves. Vayichalif sim losav. Change of clothing. Vayavo el Paro. Bring him. No. Bring him. Everyone else failed me. He's good at it. Go get him. It's interesting. Rashi already points this out. That when the Sarah Mashkim, when the wine pourer is telling Paro this story, and he references Yosef. He doesn't even use his name. Why? He's not interested in helping Yosef. Even though at the end of last week's Parsha, Yosef says to him, I helped you, I calmed you, I predicted for you, I helped get you out of this predicament. Do me a favor. When it all works out well, not if, but when, I know it will, when it all works out well, do me a favor, will you remember me? Could you remind Paro about me? Could you get me out of here? And what does he do? Now that he's got his chance, the Sarah Mashkim, he doesn't do it to pay the debt. He doesn't pay the favor. He doesn't do it to help Yosef. He doesn't even mention Yosef's name. Why does he bring this up all together? Who is he helping? Himself. How is he helping himself? By being the solution to Paro, and he thinks he'll somehow be rewarded or elevated as a result. And you see that from the text itself, because the text, he doesn't even use Yosef's name. And how does he describe Yosef? In such an insulting, degrading, judgmental way. He's a na'ar. And Rashi picks up on this. He says, na'ar, arurim arashayim she'in tavasan shlema shemaskir b'lashon bizayon. Cursed are the wicked, because even when the wicked do something nice, they can't do it nice. Even when the wicked do something right, they can't do it in a kind way. And where do you see that here? Lashon bizayon, na'ar shota ve'ena roy legdula. There was this kid, immature, unsophisticated kid, unworthy of anything, but I'm trying to help you. So there was this kid, he was a na'ar, he was ivri, says Rashi, afil l'shonenu eina makir, he couldn't speak our language, he doesn't speak Egyptian. Eved, he was a lowly slave, but there was one thing that this immature, unsophisticated, lowly slave, non-Egyptian foreigner, one thing he did well, which was interpret dreams. So really credit me if it works out. I want the promotion. He is just some foreigner, outsider, doesn't speak our language, immature, unsophisticated slave kid. But of course it backfires because they go get Yosef. And now Paro tells Yosef, Chalom chalamti, I had a dream and I can't find anyone to interpret it. Vani shamati alecha, but I heard about you lemor, tishma chalom, I heard about you that you're good at this. Vayan Yosef, and now Yosef, and that's the pasuk I want to begin with. How does Yosef answer? What does Yosef answer? This is always incredible. Now, you're Yosef. You've been rejected by maybe your father who sent you to check on your brothers. When you got to your brothers, they conspired to kill you. They backed off of killing you. Instead, they decided with their pity and compassion to throw you in a pit with snakes and scorpions. And then their greater compassion kicked in. And ultimately, what did they do? They sell you into slavery. And even in that predicament, even in that circumstance, you rise to greatness. You become in charge of your master's home. But lo and behold, what happens? You're falsely accused. You act nobly and virtually, with virtue, and you act with morals and ethics. And how are you paid for that? Falsely accused, thrown into prison, languishing, suffering there. And now you get out. It's your big shot. It's your big chance. They say, Joseph, come with me. Shave, change your clothing. You come into Paro. You come into the Oval Office. And in the Oval Office, Paro, the emperor of the world, says to you, I heard you're good at something. I need your help. You're Yosef. What do you answer? How do you respond? It's true. I'm pretty good. I'm grateful. I've been given a gift. No, tell me the dream? I can help you. And I have a future with you. And I can make a contribution to you. And I can be an ongoing part of the solution. Instead, Yosef does exactly the opposite of what any of us would have coached him to do. What does he say? Perek Mem Aleph Pasuk Tes Zayin. Vayan Yosef es Paro lemor. Yosef answers Paro and he says, Biladai. It's beyond me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what you heard about me. It's not me. Elokim Yanesh Shlom Paro. Oh, little me? No, it's not me. Hashem. Hashem has the ability. By Deber Paro Yosef, and then Paro continues like, okay, whatever, kid. Here's my dream. And then he tells them his dream. Why in the world does Yosef say that? In the Amaros Tahoros that we begin with this morning, L'chora hay lemor miyusarhu. It says, Vayan Yosef is Paro. Yosef answered Paro lemor, saying, well, if he answered him, he said something. If he said something, he answered him. Isn't it redundant to tell us Vayan and lemor? Umevar shetevas lemor maravin zamach shava. So the Rach Meshivka quotes the Orech L'chaim, who says the word lemor is not saying what Yosef said out loud. To indicate the verb that Yosef spoke, he answered Vaya'an. Lemor is not telling us that Yosef spoke. Lemor is giving us insight into what Yosef thought. As we have later in Sefer Dvarim, Ki somar bilvavecha, when you say in your heart. How do you say something in your heart? To say in your heart is another way of saying to think. Thank you, Rabbi Fox. To think. To say in your heart is another way of saying to think. So the word lemor, says the Orach L'chaim, is not indicating that what Yosef said out loud. It's giving us a window into what Yosef thought inside. When Paro calls Yosef to interpret his dream, whom did he hear about? Yosef. And he intends to encounter a brilliant, charismatic, insightful, analytical dream interpreter, Yosef. I heard about you, Yosef. Yosef, you interpret my dream. And Paro says that. He says, Yosef, I heard about you, that you, Tishma, you hear dreams and interpret them. And that's what Paro was relying on. He's relying on Yosef. And what is Yosef Vayan? He answers, Lemor biladai. Lemor biladai. It's not, right? It's where you put the comma. It's not Vayan Yosef es Paro lemor, comma, biladai Elokim yanesh lam Paro. It's not Yosef answered Paro saying, it's beyond me, it's not me, it's God. No. Put the comma after, Vayan Yosef es Paro, comma. Yosef answered Paro, lemor biladai. Lemor biladai. Sheteda, you need to know, Ne'amana dekoma shani omer lecha yesh lecha das v'lachshov ein advar novai mechachmasi klal. You need to know that whatever I share is not coming from me. I don't own it. I'm not smarter than anyone else. I don't have inherently a gift that is superior to anyone else. Rak Elokim yaneh shlom paro. Koma shani omer lecha ein yu ela chachmas Elokim hasam advarim befi ve'ezeh ani medaber elecha. God puts the words in my mouth. God puts the thoughts in my head. God gives me the solution, the interpretation, and whatever I share, I'm just the mouthpiece. I'm just repeating. Lemor biladai. If you want Yosef, it's a gunisht. It's worthless. My interpretations won't get you anywhere. Ki ein hapitara mishali ela me'elokim. Avam tova b'machshava zu shetirtza l'shmoa kol ma ya'aneh l'cha elokim, azai yodia li Hashem yisbarach ma lanos l'cha lamitas pitar nachalom v'yideh zeh yavo l'cha Yeshua. So le'mor biladai. He said, you need to think in your head, Paro. You need to think in your head that it's God who's answering, and he's doing it through this guy Yosef. Then we're going to succeed. Yosef's giving him the conditions to be able to help him, which is pretty bold, pretty brazen. One might think pretty foolish for someone trying to make his way out of prison, but that's Yosef. Yosef, who we saw in last week's Parsha, Shem Shamayim Shkura Befiv. Yosef, living in a foreign land, abandoned by his family, living far away from the influences of his life, Shem Shamayim Shkura Befiv. He cannot stop talking about Hashem. He can't stop talking about God. Please God, thank God, God's will. He can't stop talking about God. So much so that in this moment, when this is his chance to freedom, he tells Paro, I don't know what you heard, but if you think it's me, this is not going to work. The only way this works, le'mor biladai. You have to in your heart know it's God, and if you surrender and submit and believe it's God, and I'm just the agent, then we're going to be good to go. But if you think it's me, we're not going to get anywhere. Wow. That's emunah. That's bitachon. That's outreach. That's trying to promote God's presence in this world and bring other people to see and to realize and to feel God. So if someone comes to you, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a surgeon, this is an indication about how to live our lives, how to pursue our professions, or how to even fulfill our hobbies. If somebody says, I heard you're an incredible bridge player, I want you on my team. I heard you know how to nail mahjong. You're a golfer, I put you on my team for the tournament. I'm coming to you as a surgeon because they say you are the best. And Jews, we only go to the best. We only go to the best. I want you as a lawyer because the answer, Yosef taught us the precedent. The answer is, God has given me, lent me some skills and talents, but need to know they're his. I'll do the best I can. I'll work the hardest I can. I'll take the most initiative that I can. But in the end of the day, if this is going to work, it's only the condition of employment, the condition of this agreement, the condition of this partnership, the condition of my being on your team is that you realize that if it succeeds, he gets the credit. And if it fails, it wasn't meant to be, and I'll do the most I can, but ultimately it's all from him. You still want me? Am I still the one? That's what Yosef teaches us. Our attitude and our approach has to be here. So Paro repeats the dream. And Paro repeats the dream. And we won't take the time now, but the way Paro repeats the dream, he does so with some distortions. It's not exactly the way that the Torah testified that the dream happened. But Perek Memala Pasachav, continuing with verse 20. And he's telling him the dream, he tells him, Vatochalna haparos harakos v'haraos, and the diminished, gaunt, unhealthy cows consumed the Sheva haparos harishonos habrios, the first 7 healthy, zaftig, good cows. They came inside them, they didn't even know they came inside them. And he tells them they came inside them, it wasn't apparent, their appearance remained just like at first, and then Vaikat, and then I awoke. Says Rabbi Soloveitchik, and the meager and ugly cows devoured the first 7 healthy cows. This aspect of the dream poses an obvious question. Cows, it's obvious if you know it, but cows are not known to be carnivorous. What do cows eat? Grass. Cows are vegans, vegetarians. How do you know? Because they'll tell you. Just joking. That's my joke about vegans. How do you know someone's a vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. The solution is based on an earlier Rashi explaining the appearance of the healthy cows. Earlier Rashi said, the healthy cows, it is a signal that during the years of plenty, people would be well disposed toward each other. No one envied the prosperity of his fellow because everyone was prosperous. No one envied the other because everyone was prosperous. I was just talking to somebody not from Boca. We were talking about how South Florida is exploding. And they were saying, well, it's beautiful. In the community, the harmony, all the institutions, everyone gets along. And I said, you know why? We get along because we value getting along. And we work hard at it. And we believe in it. And Baruch Hashem, we have tremendous unity. But it's also incredibly easy when every school's at record enrollment, every shul's at record membership, every restaurant's full, everything is thriving and succeeding. It's really easy to all get along. And that's what Rashi says. in the years of plenty, people were well disposed towards each other. Everyone was prosperous. No one was hoarding for themselves, and there was no envy or jealousy. Rashi writes, Rav Soloveitchik here defines prosperity. How is Rashi defining the prosperity? The years of plenty were not because the stock market went through the roof, because inflation was all the way down, because people were flush with cash. That is not the definition of prosperity according to Rashi. What's the definition of prosperity? A lack of competition and envy. People would be satisfied with what they had, not reaching out for what did not belong to them. That's prosperity. If you live in a prosperous generation, a prosperous society, a prosperous community, whether they have a lot or a little, it's because people are happy with what they have. That's the definition of prosperity. The definition of prosperity is not an external measure. Not an external measure. It happens to be tonight's Mega Millions is closing in on $1 billion. And I don't want to give myself an ayin hara that the winning ticket's in my pocket. But I'm pretty hopeful. Not for myself, but for the campus. It could finally be done. No global campaign. So now you'll all daven from my pocket. So prosperity is not because you got the winning ticket in your pocket. Prosperity is not because of the measure of your bank account, your net worth. Prosperity is when you're happy with what you have. When you're not filled with envy and jealousy, competitiveness, comparing, keeping up. When you can look and say, I'm happy with what I have. However, if during the years of plenty, the people acted selfishly toward each other, if they practiced hoarding and price gouging, they would figuratively eat each other alive during the years of famine. The normally herbivorous animal would suddenly become solely carnivorous. Yosef told Paro to avoid this eventuality by preparing for the years of famine during the years of plenty by taking control of the farmers and their produce. What the signal to Yosef, what he understood what was going on here, is that the definition of plenty is everyone's happy with what they have. If you could create a society where people are happy with what they have, even in the years of famine, you could give out and everyone can have enough without their devouring one another. But if in the years of plenty they're devouring one another, if in the years of plenty they're comparing and competing and keeping up, if in the years of plenty they're hoarding and price gouging, then in the years of famine you're finished. You've got nothing. You're going to be in the ultimate trouble. But you see from here, the Torah's understanding and definition of what it means, prosperity, what it means to have years of plenty. Yosef is incredibly ahead of his time. He has a very sophisticated understanding of economics and finance. The idea of the cycles, economic cycles of when you have to save for when you have to wait, to be able to tap into what you save, to live within your means, the knowledge that there'll be these cycles. Here we are, thousands of years later, and I can't tell you how many people have failed to learn from it. Sadly, how many people I know that in the years of plenty fashion lives and lifestyles that assume they will always have years of plenty. And when economic cycles turn, as they always do, it's a galgal. The Torah uses the term galgal, a cycle, when it talks about staka and economy and finance. Money in the Gemara is called zuz because it's zuz. It's in circulation and it moves, and the cycles move. The years of plenty will eventually catch up with us. There'll always be downturns before it turns up again. And if you don't heed the lesson of Yosef, if you don't learn early on from thousands of years ago, from the Torah, from that best-selling book that's back in fashion, whose sales are up again, the Bible, that they're economic cycles. You have to save in the years of plenty to take care of yourself in the years of famine. And how many build lifestyles that assume they have one good year and they think that year, that best year, will be their every year. And now all of a sudden their lifestyle is built on that budget. That was an outlier year and not the new standard, and they can't afford it, and now they're in trouble. And it's a lot harder to give up what you had than to not have it to begin with. 3 housekeepers and 4 vacations and super expensive leases and private memberships are hard to give up. Much harder to give up than to not have. But a person has to learn from Yosef. And Rabbi Nachman says we don't only learn from Yosef when it comes to our finances, we learn from him in other ways as well. Pasuk continues in Parak Memalach, Pasuk Lamed Vav. Turn to page 227. Pasuk Lamed Vav. Yosef interprets. Paro is blown away by the interpretation. By the way, Yosef offers a solution, even though Paro never asked for the solution. What led Yosef to do that? What led Yosef to do that? Paro dreams this bizarre scene, and not one of Paro's advisors was able to interpret it. And the butler recalls Yosef, and Yosef succeeds. But Yosef doesn't just interpret the dream. What does he do next? He offers a solution. He doesn't just acknowledge the problem that the dream presents, he provides the solution. And it's impossible not to be amazed by how presumptuous and seemingly brazen it is of Yosef in this conversation to not only interpret the dream, but to go above and beyond and do something he wasn't asked, which was to actually give a solution. How dare the slave who's released hours ago, who the shaving rash and cuts are still visible on his face, is now giving advice on domestic agricultural policy to the ruler of the world? He didn't just walk out of Harvard Business School. He didn't just, finish serving as a VC, as a great investor with a great track record. He's just out of prison. And now not only is he interpreting the dream, which is his specialty, now he's offering a solution. And how does Paro react? He doesn't say, how dare you? Who do you think you are? What are you talking to me? I didn't ask you for the solution. He accepts it. Paro had consulted the interpreters and they failed, and he now hears from Yosef and he accepts it and he's blown away by it. And in fact, his response is to say, wow, have you ever seen anyone so smart? Yosef, you're now not only in my cabinet. Yosef, you're not only going to be working in my office. Yosef, you're now number two. You're now number two. You now run the entire economy of the greatest empire on earth at the time of Egypt. How'd that happen? What did Yosef see? What was Yosef thinking that made him so brazen to offer the solution, not only interpret the dream to see the problem? And if you look closely, you see that Yosef does something none other of the interpreters do. He realizes that from the dream itself was the solution. And that is, Lubavitcher Rebbe points this out. The lesson of Paro's dream and interpretation goes deeper. Part of Yosef's advice is that Paro appoints someone that's wise, insightful, and discerning. Paro seek a discerning wise man, put him in charge. Billy Olopian questions the need to appoint someone who's unusually perceptive. It's an undertaking for an individual who's organized. If you want to save the economy, then be disciplined and organized. You don't necessarily have to be analytical. You're not investing, you're not picking stocks or mutual funds or investment opportunities. You're just being disciplined to save. So why does it need all of that? So Parshas Mikeitz 1973, I don't remember if I shared this before. The Lubavitcher Rebbe explained the following. The dream experts of Egypt did indeed conceive of Yosef's interpretation, that 7 years of hunger would follow 7 years of plenty. But they dismissed this interpretation from their mind because it didn't account for one important detail of the dream. You could read Parshas Mikeitz 1,000,000 times and you'll not notice this, and the Rebbe points it out. How did they understand the dream? They said, Paro, thin cows, fat cows? Oh, there's going to be fat years, and they're going to be followed by years of famine. What does that not take into account that happened in Paro's dream? In Paro's first dream, he saw the 7 ugly and lean cows came after the 7 handsome cows. There was a moment during which both sets of cows coexisted simultaneously, and only afterward did the lean cows swallow the fat cows, but they coexisted, they overlapped, they happened simultaneously. And it was this detail of the dream that caused the Chartumei Mitzrayim v'Chachamei, the wise men, to reject that interpretation. The fat and thin cows couldn't be fat years and thin years in the economy, because you can't have prosperity and downturn happening at the same time. And if in the dream they coexist, if the dream they overlap, that can't be what the dream means, because then it wouldn't explain how chronologically they could coexist. How could they coexist? Either you have fat cows alone or you have lean cows alone. You can't have them both together. And that's where Yosef's brilliance, said the Rebbe, is dazzling. When Yosef tells Paro how to prepare for the coming famine, he wasn't offering him unwelcome advice. The advice was part of the dream's interpretation. Yosef understood that the coexistence of the 2 sets of cows was the solution. During the years of plenty, Egypt have to live with the years of famine as if they're already here. During the years of plenty, live with the years of famine as if they're already here. Don't just save for the future because maybe, and what if, and who knows, and it's the right way to be, and it's the right way to live. You got to save for your retirement. You have to never live in debt. You have to put away savings. You have to try to have a surplus. You have to budget for difficult years. You have to budget for the rainy day, or for the broken roof, or if you're unemployed, God forbid, put away enough money. It wasn't just you're putting for the future. Yosef understood that the coexistence of the cows simultaneously was an indicator that the only way this works is if during the years of plenty, you're already living to a degree like it's the years of famine. As you're having your best year yet, say to yourself, how would I craft my life and my lifestyle and my budget if this were my worst year? How do you live? How do you live the years of famine even during the years of plenty? That's the only explanation of how the two sets of cows could have coexisted, and that's what Yosef is saying. Yosef's not adding an addendum on his own of an interpretation. Yosef solved the puzzle that made the others fail. He solves the puzzle by offering the solution not as a separate solution, but as part of the entire interpretation. To be able to prepare for the years of famine, even during the years of plenty, and that's what explains his chutzpah. But Rabbi Nachman has another interpretation. Rabbi Nachman says the following: Pasuk Lamed Vav, V'aya ochel pikadon la'aretz. This is now Yosef's interpretation. The food will be a reserve for the land, l'sheva shnei ha'ra'av asher tiyena be'eretz Mitzrayim, against the 7 years of famine which befall the land of Egypt, v'lo sikarei sa'aretz barav, so the land will not perish in the famine. This connects with the Shabbos Shuvah drasha we gave last year, a couple of years ago, about your future self. I've spoken about it again. I gave it a couple of years ago, and then I spoke about it this past year in our 4-part Shuvah series. You could find it online. To live the present with an eye on our future self. And I shared the research then, the research that judged people. The attitude and relationship we have with our future self is not a sibling or a child, is not a cousin. The attitude we have towards our future self is a complete stranger. And because of that, we don't get enough sleep now, we don't eat right now, we don't act right now, and we make the mistake because we indulge the present at the expense of the future. And if a person were to live as a chacham who's roa es hanolad, true wisdom is to see what will be born tomorrow from that which I conceive today. Why does it say roa es hanolad? See what will be born. Nolad, see what will be born. Because to live with righteousness, to attain true wisdom, is to live today, seeing, knowing what will be born tomorrow from what I conceive today. Imagine how much more regulated and disciplined we'd be in how we speak to one another, and the choices that we make, and the judgment that we issue, and how much we sleep, and what we eat, and if we exercise, and if we're sedentary or we move around. Everything would be different if we lived for our future self. If we could fast forward, no matter what age you are, please God, you have a future self. If you could fast forward, and your future self would talk to you and say, do you know the cane or the walker or the knee replacement or hip replacement or surgery because you sat still and never moved? Do you know what the lab report is because of the way that you ate? Do you know the memory loss that you're suffering because you didn't get enough sleep? If our future self could talk to our present self and tell us and beg us, and we would listen, we would change our present to ensure a better future. A lot more to say on this. So much, in fact, that I spent an hour and a half on it. Shabbos Shuvah a couple of years ago. But that's what Yosef is teaching Paro, and that's what the Lubavitcher Rebbe was understanding. That's part of Yosef's interpretation, not a secondary solution. The interpretation itself was, Paro, the only way this works is if entire Egypt in the present is living for our future selves. There's going to be a future after 7 years. There's going to be a future where the economy is going to turn. We're going to have a terrible depression. There won't be any food. Listen to our future selves in the present, not saving now for later, but saving now as if it is already later. That's the brilliance, what Yosef understood where the others failed, because that's the only explanation for why the two sets of cows overlapped. Rabbi Nachman applies this to something else altogether. Yosef ya'atz l'paro l'tzbor mazon la'agor b'meshach sheva shanim asova. I'm not reading to you from Rabbi Nachman proper. I'm reading to you from this beautiful sefer, Mishulchan Rabbi Nachman, a collection, insights on the Parsha based on the teachings of the holy Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. So Yosef gives advice to Paro to save. Kidei she'asher yeh l'chalkel mamono es ha'aretz mimenu es ha'aretz b'malach sheva shanos harav shebo achareim. We need to have a storehouse. We need to have surplus. We need to have savings, because there'll be a time we need to tap into it. This is fantastic financial advice. Our society is not living it. Just as an aside, part of your responsibility as parents and grandparents, our responsibility is to teach it to the next generations that you don't max out your credit cards and you don't go into debt and you don't indulge just because you want it. To live responsibly is to save. You got to get life insurance and disability insurance. You have to have a certain amount of savings to be prepared in case you ever went a certain amount of months unemployed. There's certain basic things that nobody teaches anymore. Not parents, not the chassan teacher, not the rebbe, not the Masada Kedushin. When you go to a shul, don't forget to pay membership and join. When you eat at the kiddush, you go to the shal shidduch and your kids use the youth department, and you ask the rabbi a million questions, don't forget to join membership. It's basic menschlichkeit. There should be a curriculum of man up. This is what it means to be mature. You're old enough to get married. This is what you need to do. Life insurance, disability. You got to balance a budget. You got to create a savings. You got to think about your retirement. This basic 101. I don't know that I'm very blessed. I say this not only because they're sitting here in the front row. These things were taught and ingrained explicitly and implicitly to me. I try my best to live up to them. I don't know if I'm doing as well teaching it to the next generation, but we're fighting the tide in trying to do it. The world is now against us in that way because all of marketing and everything is, just do it and obey your thirst and buy anything you want and go into debt and max out your credit cards and keep up with everybody else. And it's a problem. But it's against the Parsha. This is our Masorah, Yosef HaTzadik. The whole way he got out of prison and the whole way we got in and out of Egypt and set out on the path of our people, it's because Yosef had this insight. We need to listen to it and learn from it. But Rabbi Nachman says what's true financially and true economically and true with our money is also true spiritually. Listening to this beautiful teaching of Rabbi Nachman. This is such a Rabbi Nachman. In Likutei Muharan, Chelik al Siman Reish Chav Beis, Tzarech lios tamid b'simcha v'la'avadas Hashem b'simcha. We know Rabbi Nachman, Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha, on top of our Aron, when choosing a pasuk. There's so many. Know before whom you stand. We chose Ivdu as Hashem b'simcha. Simcha. What has to animate and inform and inspire our lives is joy, joyfulness, happiness, positive energy. Even Rabbi Nachman understood there are things that are going to bring us down. What happens when we encounter doubt and uncertainty? What happens when we experience suffering and pain and hardship? What happens when we're going through overwhelming and difficult times? Said Rabbi Nachman, are you listening carefully? That Yosef HaTzadik's economic advice when it comes to money is also true when it comes emotionally. When you're happy, when you feel everything's coming together, when life makes sense, when there's clarity and confidence and purpose, when there's a skip in your step and a smile on your face, bank it. Bank some of it. Bank some of it. Bottle it. Take those feelings. Take that energy. Take that attitude. Take that perspective and bank it and bottle it so that when you need to, you can tap into it. Just like a blind person who doesn't know where they're going, they're groping in the dark, relies on someone who can see to get where they need to go. And sometimes there is no other person. The only one they can rely on is their stick. The stick doesn't see anything. We can also count on ourselves, our stick that can guide us. The blind person, when that moment can't see, relies on the stick that also can't see, but he trusts it to get where he needs to go. The me in a dark period, can rely on the me from the light period that knows where to go and how to get out. We can tap into what we bottled, what we banked emotionally. It's not only true financially, there is the ability to bank faith. You can bottle faith and bank faith. When things are going well, when you're positive, when you're happy, when you feel good, bank it. So that when you go through a dark period, you remember, I was once on top of the world and it felt good and there was a skip in my step and I'm going to get back there and I want to get back there. And I know that me is inside of me. So the me right now, I'm exhausted. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, I'm tired. Facing so many issues. How many people in this room, how many people listening wherever they are facing impossible challenges, suffering, struggle, waiting to be married, waiting for a child, wondering how they're going to pay the bills, overcoming an illness. There are real challenges out there. But even as we go through those periods of darkness, we know inside us is the light. There is the joy. There is the positivity. We've been there. We know it. We bottle it. Because if we don't, if when we experience the happiness and the joy, it's fleeting, and we move on and we forget it, then we don't believe that we have it inside us. We don't believe we could ever become that again. We don't believe that it's up to us to bring it back. So says Rabbi Nachman, the teaching of Yosef HaTzadik to Paro and to the economists of Mitzrayim is also true for us spiritually. When you have the wealth in the fat years of Simcha, bottle it, bottle it, bottle it. You know, the people who experience that later hardship, the future self that needs the knee replacement, hip replacement, the future self that's struggling with, can't eat anything with sugar, or can't go here, or can't do that, or needs to sleep with it, and is miserable and fabis and negative, and often wants to say, woe is me and why me, as has been pointed out. You never see the person who woke up. Nobody came in here this morning and say, I ran to the Parsha Shir, and all my joints and all my limbs, they were working wonderfully. And I was able to digest the slushy machine in the lobby, which is essentially a cup full of sugar, and it didn't put me into a hyperglycemic fit. And nobody says, you know, all my joints and limbs were working, and I can enjoy a slushy. Why me? Why me? Why am I able to have all these blessings? Nobody ever said that in history. Nobody ever experiences blessings and positivity and good times and says, why me? Why me? So when we hit the wall, when we have the struggle, when we're in the period of darkness, don't say why me, just like you didn't say why me when all those years and decades things went so well. Nobody ever had a blessing and said, why? Nobody ever walked their child down the aisle and said, why me? Somebody else should be able to make a wedding. Why me? No one had a child and the bris said, why me? Bless somebody else with children. Why me? Say, me. I deserve it. It's for me. It's for me. So when you get the blessings, bottle them, bank them, says Rabbi Nachman. And in the years of emotional or spiritual famine, tap into them and remember where we come from. In the times of light, in the fat years, hold on to, collect, bank, bottle, to the difficult years when we'll have to come back and we'll have to turn them around. Okay. Perek, Membe's Pasuk, Aleph. Continue. Yosef becomes viceroy. He implements his plan. He gets married. That's a whole separate subject, by the way. Who he married? Who did he marry? Osnas. Who is she the daughter of? Potiphera. Who was Potiphera? Potiphera was that boss. Great. Did great for his boss. Who was the boss's wife? The one who relentlessly pursued and propositioned him, and he had to flee and falsely accused him, becomes his shviger, his mother-in-law. What does that Pesach Seder look like? What does that Hanukkah party look like? What is that? It happens to be, again, not for now, but Al Pi Kabbalah, the Kabbalah say that the wife of Potiphar understood that Yosef's children, his future, his descendants would come from Yosef energy with energy from her family. She misunderstood and thought it had to come from her, but really it was her daughter who was destined for him. So our rabbis try to attribute a positive approach to her by suggesting she relentlessly pursued him because she felt it was necessary to create these descendants that had to come from the blending of those two energies. She misunderstood, both because she was married at the time, he said no, and rejected her, and because it was the daughter, not her, but it's fascinating. They have two sons, Menashe and Ephraim. The Torah tells us the names. The etymology of the names itself is also very instructive and very fascinating. The famine devastates Egypt, and now we're up to change scene, right? The curtain comes down on what's been going on in Egypt, and the curtain comes up, and we're back in Canaan, Yaakov and his sons. It's amazing. It's amazing, the Torah. The drama. Hashem is the greatest theater producer, director, composer, author. Incredible, right? We've been in Egypt, curtain comes down, and now the curtain comes up. We're back up in Canaan. Yaakov is with his sons. Yaakov sees that there's a famine in Egypt. He tells his sons, Lama tisra'u. Why do you make yourselves conspicuous? What does that mean, conspicuous? Why are you making yourselves conspicuous? How is he making himself conspicuous? What does that even mean? Conspicuous. Why do you show yourselves? Why are you trying to look like you got plenty? You don't have plenty. We're starving. We're all starving. There's a famine. There's a depression. The bank account's empty, and the cupboard's empty, and the refrigerator's empty. And if you make yourself conspicuous that you're trying to look like you're prosperous, people are going to be jealous and envious of you, and you're going to get us in trouble. So don't travel with food in your hands because you're going to make other people jealous. Don't be conspicuous. Says the Tifer Shmuel of Shmuel Berenbaum. You see from here, Lamadnu kan she'inin gadol mi sheyesh lo shefa shel bracha hu nimtza b'makom she'arbe anashim ein lahem bracha lo laharas atzmo la'ashir. If you're in a place where you're doing well, you're doing okay, you've managed something, but there are people around you who are suffering, don't be conspicuous. Don't stand out. Don't be ostentatious. Blend in, fit in, don't make others feel bad. Elias naheg bepashtus kishar b'nei amo. V'zo mida tova ma'od. Says Rav Shmuel Berenbaum, you see from this Rashi that a very noble character trait is even when you're doing well and you want to show off and you want to talk about, I predicted, I knew, I shorted the market, I'm doing fantastically, I was able to therefore get the upgrade of the car and build on the addition of the home and be conspicuous. If everyone else around you is in a depression and suffering, don't stand out. You will elicit the ire of our enemies. You'll create envy and ayin hara on yourself. Don't stand out. But then Rav Shmuel Berenbaum tags on and he says, but now the person is trying not to look conspicuous in years of famine. He's not standing out. So therefore, when the rabbi comes over and says, we're running our campaign, we're building our campus, we're have our Pillar Society, it's global time, he says, there's a downturn, the markets, business is not what it used to be, because after all, Rav Shmuel Berenbaum told them, don't be conspicuous. Rashi, Yaakov told his sons, don't stand out. He doesn't want to stand out to be the top giver. He doesn't want to stand out to be an outlier that he's able to support. Don't go so far. Relax, says Rav Shmuel Berenbaum. When it comes to tzedakah, be an outlier. When it comes to tzedakah, say, you know what? I'm very blessed. So many others are struggling and suffering. I've done well. I'm not only going to give for myself, I'm going to make up for them. When it comes to tzedakah, be the outlier. When should you not be the outlier? When you don't want to hurt other people's feelings. I have a good friend who, Baruch Hashem, is very successful. And he was once going for a walk with a mutual friend of ours on a Shabbos, on a boardwalk, obviously not in Boca. And they came across someone they hadn't seen in a long time. And the person said, how are you doing? How's everything? I heard you're building a business. What's going on? So the friend I've known since childhood said, yeah, things are okay, but, the economy's down. Everybody's hurting. Things are okay. They went on. So the friend who was walking with him said to him, you're killing it. You're killing it. Why did you tell him you're suffering, you're struggling? So the first friend said, do you think that that's what he wanted to hear? He obviously asked that because it's a hard time. It's a hard time for the economy. It's a hard time. People are going through a hard time. He didn't ask it because he wants to hear that I'm killing it. He feels better, not if I say I'm doing wonderfully. I just had an exit. I just sold my company. I'm doing fantastically. He feels better when I say it's a hard time for everyone. I'm also having a hard time. We're going to figure it out. And that's what Yaakov is teaching his sons. Lama tisra'u. Why are you standing out? Why are you conspicuous? You're only going to create problems that way. Perek Mem Beis Pasuk Hey. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael v'yakir Yosef es achav v'hem lo hikiruhu. Sorry, I skipped. Back to Rav Soloveitchik. Which pasuk? Vayavo b'nei Yisrael. The Jewish people come down. Yeah, pasuk Hey. And now the sons of Israel, Yaakov sent his sons down. They came to purchase among those who came for the famine that was in the land. What do you mean among those who came? Vayavo b'nei Yisrael. So Rav Soloveitchik says vayava'u. They came. Why does it say vayava'u? It should have said they went, not they came. So Soloveitchik says the real mission did not consist of buying food. Their objective was to bring about the great reconciliation between the alienated brother and themselves. Providence looked upon the arrival of the 10 brothers in Egypt as the prologue to Jewish history, the first act of historical realization. The departure for Egypt was to transform 12 brothers into a great union. Vayavo'u, they came. It should have said they went. Why does it say they came? Because says the Rav, the pretext for this was money, a famine. But the real reason is Hashem is moving the chess pieces. Hashem is curating everything from above. Hashem is pulling the strings. Hashem is organizing everything. As we go through our motions in life, we do the best we can. We take our initiative. We do what seems wise in any moment. But the whole time we need to know, Vayavo, Hashem is orchestrating, He's moving, He's organizing. Things are going to turn out to unfold the way that He wants. They come in such a manner, the pasuk says, B'socha ba'im. They blend in among those who are coming. What does that mean? They blend in among those who are coming. Says Rashi, Madminim atzman shelo yakirum. L'fishatziv alam avim shelo yizra'u kulam b'pesach echad. Shelo yikanes, ela yikanes kol echad b'pescho. Yaakov had instructed the sons, when you get to Egypt, spread out, blend in. Don't look like one group of brothers, a band of brothers, because then you'll be conspicuous. Then you're going to stand out. Sometimes, particularly in Gullus, blend in. So each one go in a different entrance. Don't all go on the same line. Don't travel as a group. These brothers were all handsome, strapping, good-looking, smart. They walked in a room, they turned heads. If all of you walk in together, you're going to turn heads. Said Yaakov, spread out. Don't welcome the ayin hara. Be besocha ba'im. Be among those who are coming in. Says that the Tifer Shmuel of Shmuel Berenbaum, he offers 3 reasons. I'll tell you outside because we're running out of time. Number 1, this was a time of famine. It's Midas Adin. In a time of Midas Adin, when Hashem is approaching and judging the world through din, through strict justice, in kedai lahotzi etzas me'aklal. You don't want to stand out. You just want to blend in. You want to be together with everyone else. When the Gaon, Rabbi Eliezer Yehuda Finkel, was Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir, he refused to get an aliyah on Rosh Hashanah in his own yeshiva. He's the Rosh Yeshiva. Why wouldn't he get an aliyah? He said, Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin. On a Yom Adin, I don't want covered. On a Yom Adin, I don't want to stand out. On a Yom Adin, I don't need the spotlight on me. Dafka, specifically on a Yom Adin, I just want to blend in. Give the aliyah to someone else. So number 1 reason, B'socha ba'im, blend in. It's time of din, a time of justice. Blend in, don't stand out. Number 2, the Shvatim, these tribes, were educated by the forefathers to live with Hatznei Alechas. Be B'socha ba'im. You don't have to turn heads when you walk in a room. You don't have to scream for attention by what you wear or how you act or how many you come in. Just blend in. Just blend in. Just fall in. And that's a expression of tznius. One of the ways to be tzanua, tznius is not just skirt lengths and sleeve lengths and necklines. Tznius is, are you conspicuous or do you blend in? Do you want everyone to look at you? Are you screaming for attention? Or are you happy just to fit in? That also is a form of tznius. And number 3, he says, Bnei Yaakov understood that in a time of famine, in a time of giving out tzedakah, what's the hierarchy and order? Aniyeh ircha kodman. The people of Egypt, the citizens and residents of Egypt, they come first. So if you come in as this mission from Israel, we're on a mission to Egypt to go tap into the resources, they'll say, get lost, turn around. You're not from here, you're not locals. In a time of famine, you take care of locals. So therefore, blend in. For these 3 reasons, Yaakov tells his sons, Ba'im, just blend in. Perek Mambeis Pasuk Vav. V'Yosef, hu ha-shalit ala haaretz, hu ha-mashbir l'chol am haaretz. Yosef, he was the viceroy over the land, the provider to all the people. V'yavo achi Yosef, v'yishtachavu lo apayim arza. And all the brothers come, and they bow down, they defer, they surrender to him, because they are relying on him. Hu ha-mashbir. What does it mean to be the mashbir? The mashbir. Broken. Mashbir. It's a funny word. They came lishbor bar mimitzrayim. Lishbor is like to break bread. Lishbor is brokenness because the economy was broken, and he is the one who's on charge. He is the shalit. To be sholet. Shilton is a ruler. He is the ruler, and he is the mashbir. The mashbir. He's in charge of the brokenness. Breaking bread, broken economy. What does this word broken mean over here? So the Amaras Tahoros, the Rach Mishrifka, quotes the Heilige Zera Kodesh, the Rapshitzer, who says the following, based on a medrash. Zacha Yosef l'zayidesha is gabra al Yitzro. Umavar she'amedrash perish mashbir lashon shavira. What did Yosef do to merit, to deserve attaining and being elevated to this position? How did he deserve to be number 2? How did he deserve to be in charge of the economy? So the Medrash tells us, in that moment of incredible temptation, the relentless pursuit of the wife of Potiphar, the propositioning, he overcame the temptation, the seduction. He broke his Yetzirah. Says the Zera Kodesh, the Rapshitzer, Hashem has unbelievable shefa bracha. He wants to shower us with blessing. But what happens? And the flow of this blessing is coming down from above. It hits a wall. There's blockage. There's a blockage. So there's blessing that's flowing. The wire doesn't go through into our bank account. Something's blocking the wire. How do you break what's blocking the wire so the wire of bracha can be transferred to us down here? Says the Zera Kodesh, when we break our Yetzirah, we break through whatever's holding back the shefa bracha. Just like Yosef broke his Yetzirah. In that moment, he was overcome and overwhelmed by temptation, by seduction, by desire. He was about to indulge and give in. He came that day, Lasos Malachto, but he didn't. He stopped himself. He persevered heroically, superhuman. He overcame, supernatural. He broke that natural tendency, that natural temptation. He was shover, he broke it. When he broke it, he broke the barrier that was holding back the bracha, so the bracha could flow. The Yosef hu shalit, hatam ibnei shehu mashbir. How did he become the shalit? Hu shalit. How and why? Because hu mashbir. When you break the Yetzirah, don't keep watching that. Don't say that. Don't hold back giving that tzedakah. Don't spend on that you shouldn't. Don't be. When we're mashbir, when we break that Yetzirah, that temptation, we become sholit. We become a ruler over ourselves, and we allow the bracha, the shefa bracha, that was meant to flow our way all along. Perek Ben Beis pasuk test. You know what? Actually, let's skip to the end. Let's skip a little. I wanted to work in Chanukah. In case you didn't get the memo, Chanukah is this week. Perek Ben Beis pasuk Yedalid. I want to sneak in one Chanukah thought. Chapter 42, verse 14, page 248. We're going all the way to the end. Meraglim atem. Sorry, that's the wrong pasuk. Mem Beis, I'm sorry. Mem Beis Yudalad. 234. When Yosef confronts his brothers, right, he doesn't identify himself to them. They don't recognize him, which is a question. I'm not asking questions anymore. I don't want to get in trouble. But if I would, I'd ask that question. You got a lot of brothers. None of them recognized him? I understand the beard, no beard, matured, it's been a little time. Nobody recognized him? Nobody? It's a lot of brothers here. A lot of similarities. A lot of, the way a person talks. Nobody recognized him, or something more going on? But anyway, they didn't recognize. They say we're brothers. And one is not with us. And Yosef says, he turns to them and he says, spies, traitors, I know you, and I know why you're here. And don't tell me it's to get food. You're meraglim. You have nefarious plans. You're traitors. You're spies. I've caught you. You're foreigners. He challenges them. Says the Imre Chaim. And then he sets up this whole scenario. We're not going to get to this source, but we would have seen. Everything that's unfolding in these parshios, not only is it not bizarre, it is perfectly calculated. What happens? Yosef is setting the brothers up for the opportunity for tshuva shlema, complete and utter repentance. They had sold him into slavery. They had abandoned him. Nobody rose to his defense. How could he orchestrate things so there would be a brother to test them? Would they abandon him again? Would they leave him alone again? Would they fail again to rise to his defense? All of this is being orchestrated in order to achieve and accomplish that goal. Now, he held back Shimon. Why did he hold Shimon back the first time? because Binyamin wasn't yet there. He needed to create a pretext for them to have to go back, get Binyamin, and bring him down. Who does he hold back? Shimon. Why does he hold back Shimon? What did Shimon do already? Shimon's the one who threw him in the pit. He was the right one to hold back and throw in a pit called a prison. Why else did he hold back Shimon, Rashi tells us? Who had proven himself to have fearless courage to attack Shimon and Levi? He says, I got to separate Shimon and Levi. If I have Shimon and Levi and they go together, they might conspire to actually just fight me. So I got to break up Shimon and Levi. And who am I going to throw in the pit? The one who threw me in the pit. Shimon, you're staying with me. He sends them back to get Binyamin. Why Binyamin? The test would always only be complete. What is the closest he can come to what happened to him to test them? There's only one other brother that shares that mother, and that is Binyamin. Everyone else has other mothers. The only other brother that comes from the same father and mother is Binyamin. So he has to get Binyamin down. He has to isolate Binyamin, and then I'll test the brothers to see, will they rise to the occasion? His dreams, Rashi at the beginning of the Parsha tells us, his dreams are already coming true. Because what is the first thing they do when they come down to Egypt and they see him? They bow down to him. Ooh, that's dream number one coming true. Yosef sees, wow, it's happening. It's happening. Not out of arrogance, not out of ego. What is Hashem's master plan for all of us? These dreams, these prophecies, they're happening. They're coming true. If you recall, one of the dreams, the sun and the moon, was his father. I got to get my father down here. How am I going to get my father down here? How am I going to make the rest of these dreams come true? How am I going to test the brothers to see whether they will abandon the closest thing to me, the only brother from the same mother? Will they step up and stand up in his defense? All that's next week. Suspense. But I want to end with this. He says, Meraglim atem. Meraglim. With this you'll be tested. Will you bring your youngest brother? Says the Imre Chaim. Says the Holy Vizhnitzer Rebbe. Amalam Yosef Tzadik Yisod Olam. Yosef said, Imrak atem ba'atzmechem ba'im al tzadik, ein zuraya shamnam ritzonechem liklot kan mashu. Ela meraglim atem. Meraglim miloshen regilus. Regilus atem lavo adheina v'chozer v'shavim u'boim. Kemitzis anashim milumada. V'zos tivchenu atem be'emes mekusharim hadok heitev latzadik. In bevo achechem hakaton heina. Keshetavu imachem es haketanim hayeladim. Az eda shenesiaschem hi amitis. Machmas his kashrus. He says you're meraglim. He doesn't mean you're spies. The root of the word meraglim, regel, leg, is the root of the word spies. Meraglim means hergel. What's hergel? Habit. Habit. Pattern. You're just creatures of habit. You're going back and forth because mitzvah sanasha milamada. You're just creatures of habit, going back and forth. Meraglim. This is your habit. I need to know and I need to see, can you break out of your habit? Will you break out of your habit? How will I know? This is your test. Whether you'll bring achichem hakaton, do you bring the children? Will you mix it up? Will you mix it up? This is an allusion, says the Imre Chaim, to our relationship with Hashem. Hashem says it's nice that you go to the Daf Yomi and davening. It's nice that you go through all the motions, but you're just going through motions. You're just a creature of habit. Do you mix it up? Do you keep it fresh? Do you keep it new? Do you keep it new? And that, my friends, is what Hanukkah is all about. When do we light the Hanukkah candles until? The earliest time to light, maybe Plag HaMincha, Shkia, the preferable time to light is as of Shkia, as of sunset. When is the last time you can light Hanukkah candles? Ad Shetichla Regel Min Hashuk. You have until the feet are no longer walking around the marketplace, which in South Florida, in Boca, is about 7:30 p.m. We've gotten very far in many ways. Our nightlife, no, we have a 10 o'clock Marav at PRS, so we're still hopping and happening. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Maravs at PRS. You can still get a slushy at 10 o'clock. You can still have your hyperglycemic fit at 10 o'clock at PM. So, but Acha Tichla Regel Min Hashuk. So if you fly in late, if you come from a business trip, if you have nobody to see, when is the last time you can light the Hanukkah candles? As long as there's activity, as long as people are out and about, as long as the language Chacham, our rabbis used was Acha Tichla Regel Min Hashuk. When feet are still going about the shuk. Says the domestic Eliezer of Vishnitz, mitzvah shetishka achama, sheyesh lahalas za'or Torah shenishka b'avanosina rabim, ad shetichla regel min hashuk. Lachalas as regila shelasnagas anshe hashuk, yesh lachanech as b'nei abayis loya mushpa mehalichos l'shuk. We're trying to break out of the habit, the pattern. Ad shetichla, until you break Regel, hergel, minashuk. Habit. Hanukkah candles, we light those candles, we look at those candles, they illuminate our lives, and they break us out of our habits. Stop being a creature of habit. Stop just going through motions, but break out a new energy, a new enthusiasm, a new vigor, a new rigor. Be excited for Torah and mitzvos again. Acha tichla, not regel minashuk, acha tichla, hergel minashuk. You also see the solution. What Hanukkah is supposed to do is, Hanukkah, stop going to the mall. Stop practicing retail therapy. Stop thinking your happiness will be in something that you buy and the debt you're going to go into with it. Acha tichla regel minashuk. The candles, what happens when you light the candles, you look around and you see, look at all this bracha. Look at what I have. I don't have to go to Town Center Mall to find happiness. I don't have to go to the plastic surgeon to find happiness. I don't have to order from the Amazon to be delivered the same day to find happiness. The happiness is right under my nose. Sometimes you just have to light the candle to see the happiness that's under your nose. So we light the menorah, we light the Hanukkah candles, until we don't have to run to the shuk. We don't have to go to the market or the mall. We don't have to run elsewhere to think that our happiness is there. Our happiness is right under our nose. If we'd only light the candles, wishing everyone a lichtige Hanukkah. Should be a lit Hanukkah. See the blessing in our lives. Should see the hostages come home, the soldiers be with their families, and the sweeping victory over our enemies. Besoros tovos, Yeshuas v'nechamas. Please stay to finish all of Sefer Tehillim.